Barry, your research takes us back to the Byzantine and Roman empires. What separates a currency that earns trust for centuries from one that gradually loses it?
I think a combination of a strong economy. You have to, the issuing economy has to be engaged in a substantial volume of cross-border transactions, which creates kind of a natural habitat for international use of its currency. Separation of powers, rule of law. There was a Roman Senate. Uh, there were powerful landholders during the rise of the Byzantine Empire who provided checks and balances on the emperor. You can kind of imagine where I'm going here in terms of questions about rule of law, separation of powers, control of corruption in the United States today. Um, so not only a strong economy, but strong domestic political institutions. And internationally, the issuer has to be able to defend its borders against rivals, project power internationally, build durable political alliances. So again, you can imagine where I'm going here in terms of questions about the commitment of the United States to NATO, to its South Korean partners, and so forth.
Clearly, there are a lot of variables, and these things matter. In Golden Fetters, another book of yours, you showed how the gold standard helped transmit the Great Depression. Was the fundamental problem gold itself or the policies required to defend the peg?
The fundamental problem was the policies required to defend the peg and the fact that with the expansion of the franchise, more people could vote in many countries after World War I than had been the case before. The commitment of governments and central banks to maintaining the peg began to become strained. Central banks came under pressure to bring down unemployment, stabilize the price level, stabilize the financial system, and there arose a conflict between the fixed price of gold, the stability of the exchange rate on the one hand, and economic and financial stability on the other. That's why I think more and more countries over time have abandoned pegged exchange rates, why the price of gold fluctuates more widely now than it did in the historic past. We, until recently anyway, we have been moving in the direction of more and more democratic politics around the world, which in my view is incompatible with prioritizing the stability of the exchange rate and attempting to stabilize the domestic currency price of gold.
Your research identified a group of emerging market central banks actively diversifying into gold. What most surprised you about who was buying and why?
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon that in the period before the global financial crisis of 2008, 2009, advanced country central banks, which had inherited a lot of gold from the past, had been gradually trimming their holdings in an orderly, coordinated way designed to prevent destabilization of the global gold market. Since then, emerging market central banks have been adding gold to their portfolios. So many of them did not inherit large amounts of gold from the past. Many of them had had to expend their existing gold reserves in the face of financial crises. But emerging markets have been growing faster, have been displaying better financial stability, and they're the ones that have been accumulating gold reserves since 2009-10. I think they were reminded by the global financial crisis that holding securities, US Treasury bills and bonds and other foreign securities is not without risk. So as you heard in your first hour, they have been diversifying on the margin toward gold as a form of portfolio diversification, really, and risk reduction.
When people describe gold as institutional insurance, what risk is it actually insuring against? And where does that analogy break down?
Well, I think it is insuring against expropriation risk, against sanctions risk. So we saw the Bank of Russia, Russia's central bank, double the share of gold in its international reserves between Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and Mr. Putin's attack on Ukraine in 2022. Russia, the Bank of Russia immediately saw its dollar reserves, most of its foreign exchange reserves, except for those held in China, immediately frozen as a result of that attack and the sanctions that it elicited. But the gold that Russia had accumulated and repatriated, that it then vaulted exclusively in St. Petersburg and Moscow, was free from that expropriation risk. So I think that's the primary concern. Central banks are also concerned to insulate their portfolios from loss of value due to foreign inflation, due to declines in foreign bond prices. So central bank independence, as we've seen recently, is fragile, and central banks maintain it by hitting their inflation targets, but also preserving the value of their balance sheets, their investment portfolios, and diversifying their portfolios is one way of going about that.
Let's continue to segment 2.